You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, you got me and Liza, and we're back at it again. We're going to be covering another occultist from back in the day. I have to say for myself, I've really been enjoying this. I guess this series of topics that we've been putting out, and I have actually gotten a lot of good feedback. So I'm really happy about that. It seems to be that, which is what I wanted to get across when we've been covering these people, is that a lot of people haven't heard of these people, and it seems to help them draw other, I guess, connections and stuff. And that's kind of why I really wanted to do it. Plus, like I've been saying over and over again, and I think that this person that we're going to cover, the same may go for him. A lot of the things that we have nowadays, associations or occultists, again, like I've said this over and over again, I do think they pull back. They are influenced by stuff older than them, a few hundred years possibly older than them. And I think they do kind of rebrand it or touch on it again in a different way and maybe add to it. And, so that's kind of like why I do like to cover these older people, is so then that this stuff goes way beyond what we may have thought. It's happened to me, so hopefully it's worth it for other people out there. In this episode, we will be talking about Giovanni Battista Della Porta. If I remember correctly, he was somebody that was brought up during Heinrich Kuhnrath, and I think that's how I ended up coming across him. He's a very interesting character and has done some pretty impressive stuff and was into a lot of different things that I think I've shown a few times that seem to be interests of occultists. And you'll start to see that as we get into it with stuff that he was into. But I guess we'll just get right into it. And, by the way, and if you are able to watch this episode, one, I have a bunch of pictures and stuff of his books that I wanted to throw up on the screen. And two, because of problems that we're having today, unfortunately, Liza has to keep her cam off in order to stay connected. So due to that, we're definitely not showing us, and it's all going to be visuals in books and stuff that this guy has covered. So it won't be in 4K, I don't think, because of the quality of pictures that were available for me to use. It wasn't really in 4K quality, so it'll probably be 1080p, but it should still look fairly good on your TV if you are able to watch this on your TV and listen. If you can't, again, you'll still definitely get, I think, a lot of information out of this. If you can't look at it, you can easily just listen. But I'm just suggesting if you are able to look at it, check it out for sure. Yeah, so now getting into it. Giovanni Battista Della Porta was an Italian scholar and polymath and playwright residing in Naples during the Renaissance, a scientific revolution and counter-reformation era, and he dedicated his life to scientific pursuits. His knowledge stemmed from private tutors and interactions with esteemed scholars. Renowned for his publication in 1558, A Magia Naturalis, Natural Magic, where he delved into various topics such as occult philosophy, astrology, alchemy, mathematics, meteorology, and natural philosophy, earning him the moniker Professor of Secrets. Della Porta was born in Vico Equense, if I'm saying that correctly, near Naples, to the nobleman Nardo Antonio Della Porta. He was the third of four sons and the second to survive childhood, having an older brother, Gian Vincenzo, and a younger brother, Gian Ferrante. Della Porta enjoyed a privileged upbringing with a strong emphasis on education instilled by his father, who surrounded the family with intellectuals such as philosophers, mathematicians, poets, and musicians. The household resembled an academic sanctuary where the young boys were nurtured and guided by a circle of learned individuals under the watchful eye of their scholarly father. In addition to having talents for the sciences and mathematics, all the brothers were also extremely interested in the arts, music in particular. Despite their interests, none of them possessed any sort of talent for it, But they did not allow that to stifle their progress in learning theory. They were all accepted into Scuola di Pitagora, a highly exclusive academy of musicians. More aware of their social position than the notion that his sons could pursue careers in science, Nardo Antonio nurtured the boys as gentlemen rather than scholars. Consequently, the younger ones faced challenges in mastering the art of singing, deemed a refined skill for gentlemen of the court. Alongside singing, they were instructed in dancing, horseback riding, excelling in tournaments and sports, and cultivating a sense of sartorial elegance. This upbringing instilled in Della Porta, particularly in his early years, an affinity for the luxurious life of the elites.
So in 1563, Della Porta published De Furtivius Literarum Notis, which was a work about cryptography. In this work, which is also known as On the Secret Symbol of Letters, he goes on to describe the first known digraphic substitution cipher. In fact, or just for context, this is one of the earliest forms of cryptographic technology, or an instrument called a cipher disk. And if you look into it, they kind of refer to the book as like an instrument or a tool. So you were able to, I guess, leap out of the page and utilize it as a tool itself. In cryptography, a substitution cipher, so I'm going to kind of go into what a substitution cipher is, even though we kind of covered it a little bit when we went into ciphers in some episodes back. But in cryptography, a substitution cipher is a method of encrypting which units of plain text are replaced with the ciphertext in a specifically defined manner with the help of a key. So these units may be single letters, which is usually like the most common form of cipher, or they can be pairs of letters, triplets of letters, mixtures of the above, and so forth. The receiver of this cipher then deciphers the text by performing the inverse substitution process to extract the original message that was sent. Substitution ciphers can be compared to transposition ciphers. In a transposition cipher, the units of the plain text are rearranged in a different and usually quite complex order, but the units themselves are going to be left unchanged. Whereas conversely, in a substitution cipher, the units of the plain text are retained in the same sequence in the ciphertext, but the units themselves are altered. So that's where you see the two differences with the two of them. There are a number of different types of substitution ciphers. If the cipher operates on a single letter, it's called a simple substitution cipher. If a cipher operates on a larger group of letters, it's termed a polygraphic cipher. A monoalphabetic cipher uses fixed substitution over the entire message, whereas a polyalphabetic cipher uses a number of substitutions at different positions within the message itself, where a unit from the plain text is mapped to one of several possibilities in the ciphertext and vice versa. So you're going from like a really simple cipher all the way up to a very, very complex one. Della Porta, who was quite an ingenious and clever inventor, devised, and I really, really like this story, devised a very unique method to conceal secret messages on the inside of eggs during the time of Inquisition persecution. Della Porta, who had friends and colleagues imprisoned by the Inquisition, was very aware of the meticulous security measures going on at the prison entrance. Everything was checked, and the only thing that was not checked was eggs. So he capitalized on this overlooking of the nature of eggs. But by using a blend of plant pigments and alum, which was usually sulfate salt of aluminum, he inscribed delicate messages on the surface of the eggshells. And because shells have a semi-porous nature, it allowed the ink to seep or penetrate the shell and seep through onto the actual egg white. So after the writing dried, he would boil the egg, wash away the ink, and effectively erase any exterior traces of his covert communication. The recipient then in prison could unveil this concealed missive by simply peeling off the shell, unveiling the message inscribed on the egg white. So, which I think is pretty cool. In addition to this ingenious and remarkable feat, De Furtivius Litterum Notus includes an early instance also of music substitution ciphers, showcasing Della Porta's multifaceted ingenuity and his proficiency as an occult scientist. So I'd like to add a little blip here that I think we often think of encryption just in general as a more modern strategy form of technology. And we can map it all the way back to the inception of ciphers, yes. But I think it's also important to mention that there was a leap to block ciphers, from regular ciphers to block ciphers and random number generators, which today's technology stem from. And we owe a lot of that foundational work to Della Porta and some of the work that he put forward at this point in time.
Yeah, I and again, it's not even like I'm picking these people on purpose too. It just seems to work out this way. But it's almost like every single person we've covered lately is into ciphers, or they've even helped create other ciphers. I think that is hugely important for people to realize and understand. And I'm even
agree.
You even start to wonder what was the reason you even got into ciphers? And it was I'm wondering, is it because of did they come across gematria first? And then they realize that ciphers do exist, and you know what I'm saying, like that. What's and then you have to start wondering again: is their stuff ciphered, or at least if it's not ciphered by something they made specifically, are they still acknowledging that there's gematria, and that could be in there to begin with, something like that? I don't know.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely interesting. And it was even, even why I'm even bringing that up too is, I think, unfortunately, I think that might come out after this, but I highly suggest to keep a lookout for me, Megan, and Mario. We'll be covering the Michael Meyer emblems. We should be covering a few of them, and one of them that I touch on when I start running numbers and stuff on words or things that are in the picture, you start getting some matching stuff that is very weird. And you almost have to start really entertaining the idea that gematria is even used within the art. That's just my opinion, but I definitely think some of the stuff I will show with Meyer, that guy was using gematria in his art. That's just my opinion. So I think it's great that we keep coming up with more people that are into this cipher stuff, because I think it's important. All right, so now back to Della Porta. In 1586, Della Porta published a work on, oh God, I'm going to screw this word up, physiognomy. I don't know. Basically a book of I think it's pretty interesting and kind of funny and comical in some ways. And another reason why I highly suggest to look at the video. He's basically showing, I guess, people and animals, kind of almost like that whole idea that the dog eventually starts looking like their owner. It's showing a person, it'd be if you took AOC and put Mr. Ed next to her. You got, it almost kind of looks the same, doesn't it? So he's doing that with animals and humans, and I think he might have been getting at something with it. But I definitely think it's definitely interesting. And it was influential. This influenced the Swiss 18th century pastor Johann Caspar Lavater, as well as the 19th century criminologist Cesar Lombroso. Della Porta wrote extensively in a wide spectrum of subjects throughout his life. For instance, an agricultural encyclopedia entitled Villa, as well as works on meteorology, optics, and astronomy. And I find that interesting, optics. We've had that come up a few times now. And we just mentioned agricultural. He does have stuff that we'll get into with even plants and stuff. And that seems to be, when it comes to plants and botany, that seems to be a commonality amongst occultists. I mean, how many times have we mentioned that with Nazis? So, and I think... Yes,
exactly.
I think I had even said this to you. We tried to record this the first time. I really do wonder, if the whole botany thing is, I think I had said to you, I wonder if it's more of a basic way of looking at math and maybe sacred geometry coming into form early on into this reality. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it would be easier to see the math and the geometry in a leaf than it would be to like look at a whole human. You know, it's just so much more involved, I think.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if sometimes that's why they look at that.
Yeah, it's easier with plants, and you don't have to like ask for a corpse or wait for a corpse or wait for, a body part to kind of look at it and analyze it, or have permission to run tests on actual people or anything like that. You can just go pick one up or plant it and run your experiments.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess you'd probably be considered less of a creep if you were looking at a leaf than someone's, dead person's brain. So I see how that works. Yeah. In 1589, just on the brink of early modern scientific revolution, Della Porta stood at the forefront, daring to challenge the age-old belief about garlic nullifying the power of magnets through his pioneering work based on experiments. Now, call me crazy, regardless, and now this is a topic that I think if you were to look up now, it's probably been said no since then, said yes again. But I do really wonder if that has something to do with going back to vampires, because they do tend to have a magnetic thing to them, especially for women.
Yes, they do.
So, and I've gone back to saying, I really honestly think your optic nerves going back into your vitreous humor is vampires' fangs in the blood. It's just my theory, my idea. So I really do find this garlic and magnetism very interesting with the vampire stuff. That's just, whatever for me.
That's where you bring up the whole vampire with magnets. You think about blood, and blood has iron, and iron is very magnetic.
Yes.
And so if they were looking at garlic to nullify or, basically prevent the magnetization of vampires, I could see that.
It's just, isn't it weird a little bit? I mean, I don't know. See, and like, you're not even stoned, and you're entertaining the thought, so I can't even say it's me, one of my weird stone thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's good. It's valid. I think it's valid.
Yeah, it's like, that's just one of Nick's fucking stone fucking
very plausible
weird ideas. This marked a significant shift where the credibility of ancient sources gave way to the validation of scientific claims through practical investigations. Basically saying, I think, like, people were starting to also experiment instead of just going along with theories. I kind of like what science is supposed to do. Subsequent experimental validations by notable figures such as Thomas Brown solidified Della Porta's findings, laying the groundwork for a new era of evidence-based scientific inquiry. What I was just saying. In later life, Della Porta collected rare specimens and grew exotic plants. His work, Phytonomica, probably saying that wrong, lists plants according to their geographical location. In that book, the first observation of fungal spores is recorded, making him a pioneer of mycology. His private museum was visited by travelers and was one of the earliest examples of natural history museums. It inspired the Jesuit Athanasius Kircher, who we've brought up before, to begin a similar, even more renowned collection in Rome. And you know how mad I was that I realized that after I left Rome, Athanasius Kircher had something there? I was like, fuck.
Oh, man.
There was even something else that I think, I think JJ, no lie, I think JJ sent me some shit where, like, I think who's that? They're like, him and Dana are always covering that cult they're always on to.
Oh,
I can't believe I'm having a problem
Process
with this.
Church?
Yeah, I think they have something out there that I could have went and visited too. I was like, he literally sent it to me the day I left Rome. I was like, yo, I literally just left. If you would have sent this to me a few days earlier, I would have went. No lie, I would have went. Because like if you go to Rome and like,
you just have to go back.
I'm not, and it's like I'm not doing it to like to brag that I was there, but like for people who haven't been there, like you could literally be like on the opposite side of Rome and like jump on a subway and be at the other end in 40 minutes. You know, I mean, it's almost like kind of like Manhattan, really, or like, you know, Queens, to where it's like, you know, I could have like easily, I easily could have made it there. The wife may not have wanted to, but I could have easily for sure have made it there just for shits and giggles and gotten some photos. But yeah, I was really upset when I had realized Athanasius Kircher did have something out there. I was like, oh man, but it is what it is. I mean, it's for people, if you ever make it over to there, it is really, how do I even explain this? It's bigger than I expected it to be in some ways. There is stuff everywhere. These things are gigantic. Like even when I went into St. Peter's Basilica, like, I mean, like these sculptures are like 5 times the size of a human. Yeah, they are gigantic. The ceiling is just like, what the like I've joked, but it's just like you would think giants lived in this shit because everything is just like extra big. And it's just like even in the towns, it's like you could turn the corner and you got this crazy ass occult fountain. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so much you can't even, if you're going out there to like really research and get stuff on film, you're going to be overwhelmed. Like it's just non-stop. So it was just like, it was almost like there was so much shit there. You could probably spend weeks and weeks and it wouldn't be enough. It's really wild. And it's like, yo, like, and, you know, not knocking this country, because again, I'm very grateful that I was born here and not somewhere else. But it's just like, why don't we have that? Like, or like, it's hard to explain, but like, regardless of maybe, in my opinion, I don't think this stuff is all as bad as a lot of people do think it is. And I do think there was a lot of passion and love and time that was put into making this stuff. We can't get a few motherfuckers over here to do something like that. Like, just a couple, please. Like, everything is just like, let's get it up as fast as possible and throw motherfuckers in there and charge rent. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, let's get some, like, you know, passion and, like, some art, for fuck's sake. I don't know. I'm just going on. All right.
Yeah. No. I would agree. I would agree with you in that when I went to Europe and coming back, it felt like the U.S. is very bland compared to the architectural art that exists in Europe.
You know, one thing I did want to add too, it was something that you had mentioned yesterday. I don't know if you remember, because we did record like part of this show until the internet just took a shit. But didn't you bring up something too about like the whole mycology and stuff with this guy?
Yes, I did. I said that, so mycology is the study of funguses, which is interesting because people who study mycology early on, with the inception of the toxin from mycology, you get LSD. So people who study mycology pretty much capitalized on the study of LSD. So it's interesting that you have these occult scientists looking at mycology as well. And I almost wonder if they were into botany because of mycology, because of the potentiality of hallucinogenics or anything like that mycology could offer.
Yeah, and I even think like, I think it's, you know,
but, yeah,
it's even kind of like we've even shown before with like MK Ultra and Nazis and stuff. It's interesting how when you start getting into the whole thing with funguses and mushrooms, you know, they were very interested in that also in the past.
Yeah. The fact that mycology keeps reappearing in occultism is a big thing too. Okay. So digging into Della Porta, I kind of started to become a huge fan of his. And the reason for that is because I felt like in terms of what he put out and then looking at where he was at the time, the time period, he was thinking and working and writing at somewhat of the transitional moment in the history of science. So when you mentioned earlier how the scientific revolution of the 16th century, you have Della Porta kind of writing and thinking during this point in time. And so in my mind, I imagine him sitting and straddling, if you will, between two worlds. So the old world that he grew up in, which is the old world science, where no one questioned anything. There was no scientific inquiry. And then the beginning of scientific inquiry, where he's now encountering as an adult and as a proficient. He's now grown up, and now he's now practicing and thinking and writing during this moment in time where everyone's starting to basically turn science in a 180 on its head. So that kind of brought to mind that he must have been at that forefront, standing on that precipice of the change for the history of science. So Della Porta was a prominent figure in the early scientific community, hence why I think that he was kind of standing at the forefront of it all and seeing it all happen. And he founded the scientific society known as Academia Secretorium Naturae, or AKA the Accademia dei Segreti, which consisted of a group of men, most often referred to as the Otosi, or translated, and I believe you get into it a little bit later, as the men of leisure. The Otosi, which had been established sometime before 1580, was one of the very first scientific societies in Europe, whose goal was to study and explore, quote unquote, the secrets of nature. And I guess this is where we get into the whole botany thing as well. And it was interesting in that in order to apply or become a potential member of the society, you were required to showcase your new discovery in the natural sciences. So you weren't just showing up and paying a dues or submitting an application. No, you had to show that you were worthy and that you had something new to offer, not something new to bring to the society itself. Unfortunately, on the suspicions of occult involvement within the society, it led to the society's dissolution. And it also prompted Della Porta to be summoned by Pope Gregory XIII in Rome. And although he himself emerged unscathed from this encounter, the Academia Secretorium Naturae was ultimately disbanded and then ceased to exist after this. And what's interesting is that you would think that all this time and energy that went into founding this academy, and the fact that he had to be summoned and basically disband the entire society itself, Della Porta still, because of his religious devotion, ended up becoming a lay Jesuit brother. So you almost wonder what was happening in his mind at that point. Della Porta would go on to join the Academy of Lynxes in 1610. The Academy dei Lincei, literal translation to the Academy of the Lynx-eyed, or in its anglicized version as the Lincean Academy, is one of the oldest and most prestigious European scientific institutions located at the Palazzo Corsini on the Via della Lungara in Rome, Italy. It was founded in the Papal States in 1603 by Federico Cesi. The academy was named after the lynx, the animal whose sharp vision symbolized for them the observational prowess that is required by science. Galileo Galilei was the intellectual center of the academy and adopted Galileo Galilei Linceo as his signature. So he kind of adopted that whole philosophy as well of the lynx-eyed. The Lincei did not long survive the death of Cesi in 1630, who was his founder and patron, and then ultimately disappeared in 1651, the academy itself. A little more on this academy, just to kind of give you a background on that. The first Academy dei Lincei was established in 1603, like we mentioned, by Federico Cesi. He was a nobleman and aristocrat hailing from Umbria. Cesi, the son of the Duke of Acquasparta and a prominent Roman family, held a fascination for natural history, specifically botany. Surprise, surprise. But despite his father's disapproval of his chosen research path, Cesi found the support from his mother, Olympia Orsini, both financially and emotionally. And we see the name Orsini, and if you have paid attention to a lot of old conspiratorial families, Orsini family pops up a lot.
Yes.
And they're a very prominent family, I believe, in Eastern Europe, Italy, and the likes. The academy initially faced challenges due to familial resistance, but upon his father's passing, Cesi inherited the means to propel the institution towards prosperity. And that made me think, like, I bet you his father was rolling in his grave for using that money, since he didn't want him to go into scientific research, and he used the money anyway. But anyway, so this this academy. So it's situated in Palazzo Cesi Armelini, close to St. Peter. The Academy de Lince took the place of the famed, but now since closed down, Accademia Secretorium Naturae in Naples, which was originally led by Battista Della Porta. The Academy Secretorium Naturae was established in Naples in 1560 by the renowned polymath Battista Della Porta. So you see how Della Porta established this academy, and then it was disbanded because of the occult leanings or occult accusations. And then it stood kind of idle by until Chessie arrived and fueled it with his dad's money and kind of reestablished it. So that was pretty interesting.
See, this is just, I'm just going to leave this here, but this is another example of where I start to wonder how much Crowley's stories are ripped off from somebody else's. Because he had the same thing with the Abbey of Thelema, supposedly, had to be shut down. Which I don't believe was, because if you go, I know somebody who had to go to the Astrum Argentum Neophyte, and they had to go to Italy. I mean, when they went to go do that degree, oh, you had to fly to Italy. Oh, I thought it wasn't over there. Known in Italian as Accademia di Segreti, or the Academy of the Mysteries of Nature, the members were self-identified as the, man, you said this good. How do you say this again? The Otiosi? Something like that?
Otosi?
Whatever.
Otiosi, yes. OTO. Yeah. And you almost wonder that it sounds like OTO.
I wasn't sure exactly how to say it, and when you said it yesterday, I was like, oh my God, that sounds so much like OTO. Like, I can easily remember this, and now I can't. The OTOC is something like that. Or Men of Leisure. The gatherings took place at Della Porta's residence in the Due Porte neighborhood of Naples, named after two entrances leading to caverns believed to be their meeting spot. The location has attracted attention from urban archaeologists in recent times. Prospective members were required to present a new natural science fact to join society, with an otherwise open membership policy. However, the society faced scrutiny from the church, leading Pope Gregory the 13th to instruct Della Porta to disband the academy in 1578 amid suspicions of sorcery. Oh my God. I just snorted too. That's how funny that was. Alongside Cesi, the Accademia di Lince was co-founded by three comrades: the Dutch physician Giovanni Ecchio, or Johannes van Heek, and mathematician and polymath Antonosio de Felice. The name Lynchy, the lynx-like or lynx-eyed, sharp-eyed ones, came from Della Porta's book Magia Naturalis, which had an illustration of the fabled cat on the cover and the words, "with lynx-like eyes, examining those things which manifest themselves, so that having observed them, he may zealously use them." Accademia di Lince's symbol were both a lynx and an eagle, animals with or reputed to have keen sight. In classical and medieval stuff, the lynx was reputed to be able to see through rock and new walls. The Academy's motto, chosen by Cesi, was "Take care of small things if you want to obtain the greatest results." The objective was nothing short of establishing a modern scientific institution embodying the essence of observational mythology, a sanctuary of intellect. Each sector of the globe was to be adorned with well-funded academies accommodating scholars and experts. These facilities included comprehensive resources such as libraries, labs, galleries, printing facilities, and lush gardens. Researchers corresponded regularly, sharing their findings. The Linnaeus criticized marriage as a hindrance to scholarly pursuits, deeming it a soft and effeminate respite. Monks were unwelcome among their ranks. The members were urged to delve deep into the heart of phenomena, striving to uncover the intricacies of nature's workings, much like the lynx, perceiving not only the surface but also the concealed truth within. I do find that interesting, though, that they kind of preferred you not to be married. But, like, I mean, I'm going to tell you one thing. I mean, to be totally honest with you, I get if you wanted to make your life, like, of constant knowledge and learning and, like, really make the occult, I mean, it's going to be hard to probably have, like, a relationship like that. Or not being married, I would honestly, I hate to say it, probably does help. Because you're always going to have to, like, you know, unfortunately put somebody else's needs and wants, which is understandable if you decide to get married. You know, you're going to have to worry about some of theirs, and then that's going to take away from you doing what you want to do. You know, it's, you know, give and take. Well, some of these people may not want to give at all. So you just don't get married, I guess. You know? You know what I'm saying? I do get that, but it's just interesting to suggest that you aren't. Some serious shit right there.
Well, you know, to the whole point of that for females, not to, you know, go on that tangent, but, you know, so females are basically taught to serve. So it makes it rather difficult to not put, you know, it makes it difficult. Either you're going to put your marriage first, you're going to put your career first. And a lot of times, a lot of these really big scientific women are not married because it's too much of a compromise. I will say, like, with me going to graduate school, sadly, it was much easier when I was not in a relationship. So, because it was, you know, you don't have to worry about anybody else but yourself. Sometimes you even forget to feed yourself because of how busy you are, let alone be in a relationship. So it's, you know, it's a very interesting thing that they would say not to get married. And they're right if you're wanting to pursue a life of that. Yeah. But anyway, because Della Porta was interested in a variety of disciplines, Della Porta made various technological advances in agriculture, hydraulics, military engineering, instruments, and pharmacology. And I mean, imagine that you are making all these technological advances, you're probably never even going home. You're living in the lab. So there's all that as well. He published a book in 1606 on raising water by the force of the air. In 1608, he published a book on military engineering and another on distillation. He also perfected camera obscura. So kind of give you a little bit of background on camera obscura. A camera obscura is a darkened room with a small hole or lens at one side through which an image is projected onto a wall or table opposite the hole. The image, or the principle of its projection, of lensless camera obscuras is also referred to as pinhole image. In a later edition of his Natural Magic, Della Porta described this device as having a convex lens. Though he was not the inventor, the popularity of his work helped spread knowledge of it. He compared the shape of this lens to the human eye and then the lens to the camera obscura, and provided an easily understandable example of how light could bring images into the eye. And this whole thing about convex lens, you can see where Kepler would build upon something like this. And I believe there is mention of Kepler that he comes into play as well as being some sort of influential. Della Porta also claimed to have invented the first telescope, but died while preparing the treatise De Telescopis in support of his claim. His efforts were also overshadowed by Galileo Galilei's improvement of the telescope in 1609, following its introduction by Lippershey in the Netherlands in 1608, which that's got to be sad. Like you actually are preparing the treatise to actually talk about the first telescope, and you die trying to complete it, and somebody else, you know, basically takes credit for it. In the book, Della Porta also mentioned an imaginary device known as a sympathetic telegraph. The device consisted of two circular boxes similar to compasses, each with a magnetic needle, supposed to be magnetized by the same lodestone. in each box, it's labeled with 26 letters, and instead of the usual directions. Della Porta assumed that this would coordinate the needles such that when a letter is dialed in one box, the needle in the other box would swing to point to the same letter, thereby helping in communicating. That's interesting. That's a very interesting concept, because he's not, yes, it is sympathetic, and you almost think, oh, well, it's probably the use of telepathy, but you're not. He's actually trying to prove that there's a magnetic component to the actual communication back and forth, which I think is groundbreaking in and of itself, because I think they go on to actually prove this later on, centuries later, that it is somewhat possible.
You know what this made me think of, and I know it's really not like the same thing, but like, I don't even know what this looks like. I'll probably have to pull it up, though, if I can find it and put it on the screen. I may even have the picture, and I just don't even remember that I looked at it. But like, just like thinking about this, like these two circular things in a moving meter, I'm like, is this Scientology?
An e-meter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But L. Ron Hubbard was like, yo, I could come up with an idea to scam people with this. Oh, man. Imagine that. Natural Magic was his first book, and the one that he is best known for. It was first published as a treatise in 1558. This treatise included 4 books and presented Magia Naturalis as the perfection of natural philosophy and the highest science. This was the basis of the 20-book edition published in 1589. It is a remarkable culmination of the curiosity of the late Renaissance, and is the basis of his reputation, really. Its popularity ensued. It was republished in five Latin editions within 10 years, with translations into Italian in 1560, French in 1565, Dutch in 1566, and then was done in English in 1658. Which is one of the cool things about him. I think there was somebody else that we covered recently, and I may have forgot to mention it. Some of the people that we have actually covered, unless you find somebody who might have done it and like throw it up on their website, or like Furnace and Fugue, I think has Myers, but like it's hard to actually find it like republished in English. Some of these things, this guy, you can actually look at some of his stuff, and it's actually like, I guess, converted the best way possible. Unfortunately, I do think, though, that there probably is loss of translation. That's just my opinion. I think different languages have different ways to explain certain things.
I would agree.
And, like I think somebody, it might have been Headless that told me this. With, like, the whole thing with, like, he thinks, like, kind of like the whole Greek thing and a lot of the gay shit is a little misunderstood. And he said, like, they have one word for like a gay person, which is almost like and it almost like translates to like being kind of like a shameful person in society. It's kind of fucked up. But then they have 10 other words or something just to try to describe love. So it's just like, were they really all that gay? Like, I don't. But again, like, and I think because of that, because of having, let's say you do have 10 different words to try to explain love, obviously they're not all the same. So are you going to lose that because English doesn't? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think, unfortunately, I think stuff like that does happen. Natural Magic was revised and considerably expanded throughout the author's lifetime. It's 20 books. Naples in 1589 include observations upon geology, optics, medicines, poisons, cooking, metallurgy, magnetism, cosmetics, perfumes, gunpowder, and invisible writing. Jeez. You know what I had even wondered too? I was like, did this guy like get the idea of the egg because it was already probably like an occult idea in his head? Because the egg is like very like an occult symbol. Huge.
I bet so.
And I wonder if like it's just somehow like knowing that that's in his head as like an occult symbol, like, oh, an egg. I could actually like, it's just sometimes like you have to wonder like what made you come up with that idea, because he was already like looked to the egg as meaning. You know what I'm saying? Just it's kind of like how sometimes weird things pop into my head is because of the reason why that idea is even saved in my brain. It's hard to explain, but natural magic is an example of pre-Baconian science. Its sources include the ancient learning of Pliny the Elder and Theophrastus, if I'm saying that right, as well as numerous scientific observations made by Della. In his preface to Natural Magic, he emphasizes his diligence in uncovering the mysteries of nature. He declares his unwavering dedication to scrutinizing the work of his predecessors for hidden knowledge, pledging to document any concealed wisdom he uncovers. Yeah, how come it was okay to do that back then? You do that now and you're like a piece of shit. Why Della sought to amalgamate the secrets of the natural world, he remained doubtful of historical revelations and strived to validate them through personal experimentation. Asserting his commitment to a practical approach, he vowed to verify the assertions of his forebears using his own empirical observations. He describes two different types of magic in Chapter 2 of Book 1. The first is an evil thing having to do with spirits. He calls this sorcery. The other magic is natural, which all excellent wise men do admit and embrace and worship with great applause. Neither is there anything more highly esteemed or better thought of by men of learning, in quotations. This is the magic that Della dedicates his studies to. And I'll read some of this off. The 20 books of natural magic you have of the causes of wonderful things, of changing metals, of beautifying women, of tempering steel, of strange glasses, of the generation of animals, of counterfeiting glorious stones, distillation, I think that's interesting, of static experiments, that's impressive, of the production of new plants, of the wonders of the lodestone. He's got perfume, fishing, fowling, hunting, pneumatic experiments, increasing household stuff, physical experiments, artificial fires, invisible writing, and the chaos. Interesting. I don't think I'll be like really repeating anything maybe that you might have coming up, Lisa, but I do even think like some examples, like, believe it or not, even this book was like, you could have been like how to get a certain stain out of your fucking clothes. Like literally even had stuff like that, like of household. Exactly. Like, yeah, it had such basic stuff like that even in it. It was just like what we would call now life hacks. This guy was putting in books.
Easy.
Yeah, interesting fellow.
Going back to his book, De Furtivis Literarium Notice in 1563, Della describes 3 sets of cipher discs for coding and decoding messages, as well on top of that substitution cipher. And that substitution cipher improves upon the work of Al-Qual Quashandi. Notably, it also contains one of the earliest known music substitution ciphers. Music ciphers in cryptography is an algorithm for encrypting plain text into a musical symbol or sound that were typically used to encode messages. And going back to this algorithm in cryptography and this music ciphers, I found that weird because you have the word algo, and I believe there's many things with algo, but algo is also one of the first programming languages to ever have been created out of Zurich in the late 50s, which I thought was interesting. And then you put rhythm to it, and so you get your rhythm of the music part. So I wonder how much of, and of course it's a programming language, I wonder how much of that is encrypted and was used for these algorithms themselves and served as the basis for what we know now as computer language. Computer languages are basically the same thing. that, you know, potentially sigils, potentially, you know, communications that are encrypted within the languages themselves. So yeah, but I wanted to kind of give a little bit of back story on these music ciphers. So there are a variety of different types of music ciphers, and they're basically distinguished based on the methodology of encryption, and then the musical symbols used could serve as the actual sigils themselves, which would be pretty interesting to even investigate or look into later. But among them, and in particular, is the diatonic substitution cipher. The diatonic music ciphers utilize only the 7 basic note names of the diatonic scale. So we're getting into a little bit of music theory here for those people who are into music theory. So the diatonic scale is going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. While some systems reuse the same 7 pitches for multiple letters, for example, like pitch A could represent the letters A, H, O, or V, most algorithms are going to combine these pitches with other musical attributes to achieve a one-to-one mapping. So perhaps the earliest documented music cipher is found in the manuscript from 1432 called the Sermon Booklets of Friar Nicholas Philip. And Philip's cipher uses only 5 pitches, but each note can appear with one of 4 different rhythmic durations, thus providing a total of 20 distinct symbols. Another similar cipher appears in the 15th century British anonymous manuscript, as well as in a much later treatise by our guy, Battista, Della Porta. So this is where we start to see the inception of musical ciphers around the point in time where science is now starting to look into scientific inquiry, and then going into potentially the Renaissance and so forth. So in editions of the same treatise of De Fortivitas Literarum from Della Porta, it also presents a simpler cipher, which is much more well known. Della Porta's music cipher maps the letters A through M, and we see A and M again. You know, we've talked about at length about A and M, and it omits J and K onto a stepwise ascending octave and a half scale of whole notes, or also known as semibreves, with the remainder of the alphabet omitting V and W onto a descending scale of half notes or minimus. Since alphabetic and scalar sequences are in such close step with each other, this is not a very strong method of encryption, nor are the melodies it produces very natural. But nevertheless, one finds slight variation of this same method employed throughout the 17th and 18th century by Daniel Schwenter of 1602, John Wilkins in 1641, Athanasius Kircher in 1650, Caspar Schott of 1655, Philip Thickness in 1722, and even in the British Foreign Office, 1750.
Something that I was thinking about while you were reading this, and like I do remember the music ciphers. I guess, you know, just forgot and wasn't thinking about it. This is something that like I've wondered about, because like if let's say Michael Meyer, he has music in his book. This is a way to make an example of something. Let's say he actually wanted to put ciphers in that music that goes along with it. Like, and now, like, if you actually don't want your stuff being easily deciphered, are you going to mention this person at all in your work? Because then it could easily lead them back to saying, oh, this person does music ciphers. Maybe his music has ciphers. Like, maybe he doesn't even want it to be that easy. You know what I'm kind of getting at? Like, are you going to reveal, like, your hand like that? If you really are trying to put, like, deeply layered stuff in there. So, like, what I'm getting at is, like, again, I think how, like, some occultists pull from the past, they don't even mention where they even got that stuff from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's why, like, so I never heard. Of course you're not going to hear about these people, because other motherfuckers were ripping them off. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like, you know, when Led Zeppelin got blamed for, like, using black people's music. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they're not going to tell you, oh, go check out so-and-so. Oh, wait, yeah, that's where they got their fucking... You're not going to promote those people. You know? I don't know. It was a thought that came through my head. Like, I do think that might be something behind that thought. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that Michael Meyer, like, literally put ciphers in his music, but I do think, like, if some people are inspired from other people in the past and they're trying to, you know, be very cryptid or ciphered in their stuff, they may not show their hand of influence. Put it that way. You know? So that's just something to think about, I think. Dehumana, where again, this book, I'm not even going to try. It's one of the earliest illustrated works of physiognomy, if I'm even saying that right, which is the practice of assessing a person's character or personality from their outer appearance, especially the face. This book presents traditional ideas and includes woodcuts of animals and humans to illustrate characteristics. If I have the time, I gotta try to do an AOC and Mr. Red one and put it up on the screen. Make one myself. I could put an effect like bump map on it. It might start making it look like carved wood. Like, I gotta see it. The treaty's attempts to establish a scientific basis for physiognomy, drawing on the doctrine of signatures, which suggests that resemblances between human facial features and those of animals can be indicative of character traits. For example, a person with a beaked nose might be considered bird-like in character. Della Porta's work was significant in its time and achieved a remarkable European reputation, influencing various fields including medicine, literature, and art. By 1655, it had been translated into several languages and reached about 20 editions. The book's illustrations and ideas also inspired artists like Charles Le Brun, who prepared a series of pictures representing various emotional facial expressions based on the work. The book reflects the early modern European consciousness in this type of stuff, which was shaped by Galenic medicine, if I'm saying that right, and Aristotelian philosophy. I screwed that up too. However, it has also faced criticism and skepticism, particularly as new perspectives on the mind-body relation emerged. Despite this, the popularity of the physiognomic notions persisted in various cultural contexts. So I don't know why I got a kick out of that book. It's just like, what the and like it took off too. It's just like, wow. Okay.
So another one of his books is De Refractione Opticis, which again, we're going into optics again, which I think is a common theme with these occultists, is these optics theory, optic experiments, anything to do with optics, lenses, what have you. And they're all mirroring something to do with the eye. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was released in 1589 and is, of course, one of his work that wasn't published until 1593. It focused on the physical properties of light, particularly refraction, and its implications for vision and optical phenomena. And I'm going to kind of go into a brief summary of the book itself, kind of hitting on the high points and sub-themes that consist within the actual work. So Genesis and Sources, the book begins with an account of Della Porta's life and the sources he drew upon to compose De Refractione. It provides an analytic narrative of the work's creation and the reasons behind its addition and translation from the original Latin. I will say this, I think you see a clear line of demarcation of people that do outline and actually acknowledge people they drew from, because they themselves had a lot of originality in their work versus the people that do not quote or cite other people. That's just my novice opinion on that one. So another theme, physical account of refraction, is Della Porta presents a detailed examination of refraction, explaining how light bends when it passes through different mediums. This phenomenon is responsible for various optical effects, including the workings of lenses and the transmission of light through optical fibers. And now we're kind of seeing how, if you fast forward 3 or 4 centuries in advance, that you see that optical fiber technology coming through, and this is the basis of it. Now you're seeing how he was talking about algorithms, he was talking about ciphers, and he was talking about these instrumentations that can be used to decode and encode. And then you're looking at how he went on to talk about lenses and transmission of light through optical fibers. So I would say that he's pretty damn important when it comes to the field of the internet and communication through it. Another one is theory of vision. The work likens the eye to a camera obscura, with the pupil acting as a window that allows images from the outside to be projected onto the crystalline lens. However, Della Porta's theory of vision in De Refractione shows some conflicts with this analogy, which are explored later in the text. Visual illusions and meteorological phenomenon was another actual theme that he spoke about. Della Porta discusses these visual illusions, their environmental and pathological causes, and analyzes the rainbow and other meteorological phenomenon. So it's weird how he goes from a kind of broad sense, he's talking about rainbow meteorological phenomenon, and then goes down to a very reductionist how it translates into visual illusions, and even going back to his theory of vision on that whole thing. And then kind of, for good measure, talks about pathological causes. I mean, this is where you get to see him really be a polymath in and of himself. Historical significance was another theme in the final section of this book, and it addresses the historical importance of Della Porta's account of light and sight within the broader context of natural philosophy as it evolved during the late 16th and early 17th century. So this work is considered significant, and I would say so, in the history of optics, and it has contributed to the understanding of light and vision during the Renaissance period. And in my opinion, I think serves as the foundation of understanding of light and vision. So, because you see a lot of people coming out of this generation and building upon this, especially, like I say, Galileo and Kepler. And I believe Galileo, they knew each other. John Battista knew Galileo. So you see that interplay between those scientific minds. He was also, Della Porta was also among the first to report adding a concave lens to the aperture of camera obscura, and experimented with concave and convex lenses. And this is extremely important, because it would not be until the use of concave and convex lenses that you actually get to see images and advancements in understanding eyesight, because of that interplay of the convex lenses in and of itself that we described in our eye series. Another book that he also wrote was De Occultis Literarium Notice in 1606, and it's a comprehensive book on cryptography, the art, and it involves the art of writing or solving codes. Della Porta was a prominent figure in the scientific community of the Renaissance, as we had mentioned earlier, and his work contributed significantly to the field of cryptology, and I would say so, yes. The book details various methods of secret communication, including the use of ciphers and codes, and it explores different techniques for concealing messages, such as the story where we talked about the invisible ink onto the egg, and other types of stenographic methods. Della Porta also discusses in this book the philosophical aspects of secrecy and the importance of protecting information. The De Occultis Literarium Notice is considered a seminal work in the history of cryptography, reflecting the knowledge and practices of that time. It's recognized for its detailed explanation of cryptographic methods and for pushing the boundaries of the field during the Renaissance period.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There was a lot. You covered like 2 books right there.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff with so what I kind of got out of like what you said, and like, what I think he was getting at too, is like you saying like he was kind of like even showing like the significance of, I guess, stuff that we would consider in space actually with our eyesight, right? Correct?
Yes.
you know, and there has been times like I've come across like stuff like that, and even like diagrams or like drawings that kind of would lead me to believe that's what they're trying to point at to an extent. And I think that that's even kind of like, I know it's a little out there, my whole idea, or it's just like I guess a theory or a wonder, where I have questioned, like, if at a certain point in our eyesight are we just like kind of seeing backwards now into like just the back screen of our eye or something. That's like a little wild and out there, but stuff like this sometimes just makes me think like maybe there's something to that a little bit. I don't know, but to me, I just found that interesting because I have wondered, like, is there some kind of correlation with that stuff out there and like the way we are perceiving reality also. Very deep.
I think so. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's something definitely interesting to think about. I mean, I don't know. It's a little out there, though. And even I think the fact that he, again, like even another book on the art of writing or solving codes. You know, again, I just wanted to hammer that down one more time. These people seem to be very big into that stuff. D. Aries Transmutationibus, or the transformations of air, is structured into 4 distinct sections, each delving into various aspects of air and its influence or meteorological phenomena. Book 1, this section serves as an introduction to the atmospheric conditions that affect our daily weather. It provides a detailed examination of the air around us and how it interacts with other natural forces to create the weather patterns we experience. The book discusses the formation of clouds, the causes of wind, and the origins of various atmospheric phenomena. Now remember, this guy's an occultist. Don't forget that. Book 2, Moving from the Skies to the Waters. The second book explores the transformation of air into water and its subsequent forms. It covers the entire water cycle, explaining the process of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Read it. Yo, imagine that's where we got the whole idea from that. Like when I learned in school, like, you know, how like the water from that lake rises up, turns into clouds and falls. Imagine it's from this dude. Readers will find in-depth discussions on the nature of rain, hail, snow, and dew, and how these elements are all products of air's remarkable ability to change. Book 3, the third book, shifts focus to the element of fire and its relationship with air. It investigates the creation of fiery phenomena in the atmosphere, such as lightning and comets, and the sounds that accompany them, like thunder. The book also touches upon the more mystical aspects of these phenomena, reflecting the beliefs and superstitions of the time. Book 4, the final book, broadens the scope to include larger geological and hydrological phenomena. It examines how air impacts the behavior of seas and rivers, and even delves into the causes behind earthquakes and other seismic activities. This section reflects Della Porta's curiosity and his attempt to understand the natural world through observation and the application of elemental theory. Throughout the work, Della Porta references classical sources, blending ancient wisdom with his observations. While some of the beliefs may seem superstitious by modern standards, D. Aries, that book again, represents an important bridge between medieval alchemy and the beginnings of modern scientific meteorology. It is a testament to the enduring human quest to comprehend the forces of nature.
So another one of his books was Phytognomica, and it was published in 1588. Yeah, I also have problems pronouncing that one. It's a seminal work in the field of botany, particularly renowned for its pioneer and exploration of the doctrine of signatures. This doctrine is a fascinating concept that suggests that plants were created with specific shapes and forms to signify their therapeutic uses to humans. The book is adorned with 32 exquisite woodcuts, each meticulously illustrating various plants. These illustrations serve not only as visual aids, but also as a guide to understanding the medicinal properties of the plants depicted. I wanted to kind of insert something real quick. I visited with a medicine man in Peru, and he spoke of this. He said that the diseases or the ailments that they had were represented by the plants out in nature, and that's how they knew that that plant was the cure. So I find it really fascinating that you have tribes in Peru that supposedly had no contact with Europe, so to speak, and developed these methodologies, and yet Europe was also talking about the same thing, looking at plants that model the disease or the ailments that it would assist with or help with. So, for instance, the plant known as eyebright, with its eye-like markings, is suggested to be beneficial for eye-related ailments. This correlation between a plant's physical attributes and its supposed health benefits is a reflection of the early modern period's attempt to decode nature's secrets. Della Porta's work captures the essence of this and of this era's quest for knowledge, intertwining botanical study with philosophical and medical theories of the time, which I'm absolute fan of. I think that's all encompassing, and it pretty much encapsulates everything that everybody was trying to do at that point in time. Phytomonica stands out not only for its scientific content, but also for its contribution to the art of botanical illustration. The woodcuts are a testament to the craftsmanship and the artistic skill of the period, offering a window into the historical context of botanical research and the natural world's perceived divine design. The book remains a valuable resource for those interested in the history of science, botany, and the intersection of art and nature. It encapsulates a moment in time when the study of plants was as much an artistic endeavor as it was a scientific one. And if that's not a review to buy a book, I don't know what is, because it sounds really, really good.
I'm getting commission. Actually, it's a paid sponsor. There's like only one company publishing that book. Oh man, that's funny. Thank you. That was well said. Well said. And we're pretty much just gonna wrap it up pretty soon after this. But I did want to mention that he does have playwrights too, and that's a whole other thing that I could have went into, but I really felt like that wasn't worth it. It was just gonna keep this to one episode. And then interesting enough, he has done some sculptures as well. So this guy did a lot, I guess. With playwrights, the 17 theatrical works that have survived from a total of perhaps 21 or 23 works comprise of 14 comedies, 1 tragic comedy, 1 tragedy, and 1 liturgical drama. Comedies, you got a Lo Astrologo. I'm not going to go over all of these. La Ciencia, Il Moro, El Olympia. You have La Turia. You have La Penelope. That's a tragic comedy. And, I don't know if you're interested in that stuff. You could go check that out. Although they belong to the lesser-known tradition of the Commedia Erudita, rather than the Commedia dell'arte, which means they were written out as entire scripts instead of being improvised from a scenario. Della Porta's comedies are eminently performable. While there are obvious similarities between some of the characters in Della Porta's comedy and the masks of the Commedia dell'arte, it should be borne in mind that the characters of the Commedia Erudita are uniquely created by the text in which they appear, unlike the masks, which remain constant from one scenario to another. I do find it interesting, the masks. Like, I wonder if that was, like, supposed to be for, like, symbology and stuff. I find that interesting that, like, there seems to be specific masks for these things. Or these styles of whatever it's getting at. One of Della Porta's most notable stock characters was the Parasito or Parasita, a gluttonous trickster whose lack of moral scruples enabled him to pull off stunts that initially might risk bringing the plot crashing down, but ended up winning the day in unexpected ways. The term Parasito was translated by John Florio in his Italian to English dictionary, first published in 1958, as a smell feast or a flatterer, a parasite, a trenched or bellied friend, one that saith and doeth all things to please the humor of another, and agreeth unto him in all things to have repassed scot-free. Whatever that means. Probably like to get away with shit. Perhaps the best example of this type is Morfeo in the comedy Le Fantesca. So he kind of like even wrote, in my opinion, you kind of like, I would say that kind of goes a little bit with the trickster type. So I find that interesting. Even maybe a jokester.
Yeah.
So, but that's all I really, and it's perfect timing too. It's kind of where I wanted to keep the episode around. I think that was like, enough that we were going to cover on him. I know some people like Meyer, Coonrath, we've done 2 episodes on, but I think one was justified for this guy. I mean, there's definitely other stuff we could have gone into, but I think I kind of got across what I think, which is really important, and it's like even something that you've brought up that you mentioned in here. Again, the optics over and over again, botany, plants over and over again, codes, ciphers.
Yeah.
There's a constance with these old school dudes and females. So I think that I think we did a good job. Thank you very much.
And one thing I was going to mention, Nick, that we see why and how the Rosicrucians were, I guess, molded based on botany, based on ciphers, based on the other things that were going on at the time, and how they contributed to molding those societies.
I do definitely think like one thing that I've been like trying to show, and I'm sure people have realized it already, or maybe like realized it but never really clicked. But I do also think like with a lot of the people that I've covered, or that we've covered really, they are, I think, are very, very influential on today's science and technology. Extremely.
Yes.
Or around people that were.
Yeah.
There's other people that I know that we could have covered, like Kepler and other people that were very extremely impactful in certain areas. We may not have, but like we're talked about people that they've brushed, shoulders with, or were influential, influenced from,
right,
or disagreed with, But
yeah, that's true.
It's definitely interesting how I definitely think that these people. I mean, again, I've even mentioned it. I don't know if I said it when we recorded him, but I have said it on other shows. I mean, if you really think about it, Athanasius Kircher and that whole idea of being able to transport spirits of demons through light and crystals. I mean, that's exactly how our internet and TVs and tablets work. We're sending light and frequencies through these optic cables that are lighting up these crystals and showing us visions. I mean, that's straight up. I mean, was that guy wrong? He theorized something that's going on right now.
No.
It's the only way we're even recording this show. I mean, think about it. So I guess Anthony instead of David Icke was right. Athanasius Kircher was right. He's like, got you, motherfuckers. You all thought I was talking shit, didn't you? It was probably more like I was trying to warn you. Nobody wanted to listen.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lisa. I had a really good time covering this. Hopefully the images came out all right. Again, like I said, we're going to try to put up, as much. There's going to be something constantly on the screen. Obviously, like I said, there was technical issues with the video, with us recording video anyway. But hopefully it should be in decent quality. I don't know if it would really make much of a difference. I may be able to actually bump it up to like 2K. I know that's like really not a thing anymore, but that might help with like the actual quality for a TV or your phone. If that's possible, I will try to do that. But again, if you can take advantage, I do highly suggest to look at the visuals. Unfortunately, I don't think there was anything of his I could grab before this gets released and actually take myself. There is more of that actually coming. One thing I am actually going to do, and I keep forgetting about it, I meant to tell Lisa actually, I forgot, but I keep forgetting that the Voynich manuscript is actually at Yale. And I was like, I just remembered that a few days ago, and I was like, I should really get down there and photograph that.
Yes.
So, and then eventually touch on it, because we do have some ideas and theories possibly with that book. I still want to try to look at it and look at it with the eyes and the brain. That could possibly end up taking like a while, but I would like to at least try to get some decent footage and maybe put something together, even if it's just like a part one of a basic introductory of the book and having very good quality pictures up. That's definitely doable, and I would like to get that sooner than later. So, as I'm trying to do more shows, more visuals, and trying to actually get my own footage going forward, I'm going to try to do more of that. There's a few more things at Yale that I might be able to go and take pictures of that me and Lisa can cover. Stuff that we've actually even kind of covered in the past. I can even go back and actually get my own stuff and kind of recover it ourselves in a sense. So, yeah, I look forward to doing more of that and keep an eye open for that. And that is, I guess that's the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.